been doing this for 17 years, and I've been speaking in libraries, assisted living, independent living, community centers, synagogues, all over the metropolitan area, but mostly Long Island because it's convenient. I live nearby, and there are many audiences that do want to hear the things I have to say. I have covered a multiple of topics during those years, some social, some political, some economic, and so forth. Again, my name is Howard Shurdut for the television audience. You have it on your handouts. And I will give you a brief biography, autobiography, so that those who have not heard me before at least know where I'm coming from. I graduated Harvard College, and I majored in psychology, sociology, and cultural anthropology. Went into the United States Air Force, served in Korea, returned to this country and went to the Columbia Graduate Business School and have an MBA in international business. I worked for several companies and then eventually worked for the IBM Corporation for 30 years in marketing, management, and in education. After I retired, my wife and I started a little business, and without going into details, I eventually came and started to do what I'm doing now, presenting my ideas to audiences, mostly senior audiences, to give them sort of a understanding of what's happening around them, because when you retire or when you're not working, you sort of not do all the things you used to do. And the point is, you should maintain an active, thoughtful life. And that's part of my philosophy, is keeping the mind going, the body going, and the spirit going. It's helpful to me for 17 years, and hopefully it's why you're even here today, because you must be interested, and you all, most of you raised your hand about listening to the president talk because you're interested in what's happening in the country. And you are concerned for the future of your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the country as a whole. That's wonderful, and I appreciate that you're here tonight. Thank you. Tonight we're going to talk about something. Apparently the president, you know, you've heard of the cyber security problem, right, that we had with North Korea. The president stole my speech, okay? I mean, he covered all the topics I'm going to cover tonight. I developed my talk way before he gave his speech, but I certainly have a different slant, perhaps, on some of the things than he had. But I would like to, because of he didn't cover many of the bad things that are happening, and we all know all the bad things because all you have to do is turn on the TV or radio or listen to, you know, various people talk about what's happening in the world today. And I'd like to start off tonight a little differently by giving a little speech, actually, of my own, a little something I wrote years ago, and I probably gave it here a number of years ago as well. And basically, it's called an Ode to America. And I'd like to set the tone because of the bad news that, you know, there is some good, a lot of good, and we shouldn't overlook it and have it crowded out by the bad news that we are faced with, inundated with on a daily basis. This country so widely spread from sea to sea, with beaches, mountains, plains, and so much more, beautiful, even spectacular landscapes wrought by nature's hands, or God, if this is your preference, over millions of years, by sun, wind, and water, brought a land first settled by creatures as small as an amoeba and as large as a dinosaur. And then the Indians came upon the scene to live in balance with nature's bounty for centuries and centuries, although not always in peace with their fellow men. The Spanish, English, and French then came to alter this, and more pain and suffering then ensued. The New World, unchanged for thousands of years, joined the Old World and changed dramatically in hundreds of years. Untamed wilderness rapidly disappeared. People flooded this land from sea to sea. Some came for freedom from Europe's economic, religious, and social problems. Some came for greed. Some came not to escape being in chains, but by being put into actual iron chains. But then enlightenment by the founding fathers. A new experiment was begun. Not always right has been the course, but the principle of right has been steadfastly envisioned and helped to straighten the path. We as a nation have had a less of a history of bad than most, especially noting the diverse ethnic, cultural, and religious backgrounds that we encompass. The visions of equality, liberty, opportunity, and justice for all, our whole population, still live strongly in our minds and hearts. We must not let these be diminished by those on the extremes, domestically and from abroad, that have but narrow and selfish interests. They will prevail to our national peril. So I set the tone by that because much of what we will discuss can be taken in a very negative way. And so the handout, as you see, is what's in store for this year. Will there be chaos? Will there be a resolution of many items? Or there will be no change? In race relations, we have had an outburst of protest in this country, and that is not lessened. It is not lessened. As you know, Martin Luther King movie came out this past week and will probably revitalize some of that discussion. But what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, in Staten Island, in Cleveland, and many places in this country exacerbates this divide or feeling of divide that many people have. Although many of us thought that much was resolved in the 60s, 70s, and so forth, and we have progressed tremendously in race relations, there's been an undercurrent of dissatisfaction amongst many peoples. That will play out this year more and more as court cases will come up and various governmental people and agencies will try to look at things and maybe change some of the rules and laws that prevail in grand juries specifically. So that's one thing that's happening. The other thing that's of major concern and going to be very much debated in the Washington halls of Washington is immigration. We have a broken immigration system. Okay, we do need some of the people who have come here looking to help themselves at the lower levels of immigration, people who work the farms and pick our fruits and vegetables and do the work in the slaughterhouses and in the chicken houses down south, because they're not our brothers, sisters, sons, or grandchildren. They're people who have immigrated here to do that low-end work that most Americans will not go near. And so that's one element of immigration. Another element of immigration, which you may or may not be familiar with, is at the high end. We have people coming here from around the world because we have the best educational system in the collegiate and postgraduate levels. They come here, and many of them, most of them, are forced to go back home because we will not let them stay here. So they learn from us. They learn how to develop, how to innovate, and how to enhance their own mental successes. And then we say, but you got to go home. They go home and establish businesses in their home countries and then compete with us. So this has to be fixed as well. So on the bottom level, on the top level, these are the things that have to be adjusted. And both parties have their own points of view on this, and that will come out much in this Congress and in this next 2 years. In politics, well, we know people have started to run already, and we have a list of Republicans, which is endless at this point, because they each feel they have something to say to the American public, especially since the Republicans took over the Senate as well as the House this past election. And we know that Mitt Romney is throwing his hat in the ring, and he's all of a sudden becoming the champion of the middle class. It was not the way he was pictured in the last election, but that's the way he is trying to put it, let's say, his stance now is to be in that corner. But we have Jeb Bush, we have Mike Huckabee, Mark Rubio, Chris Christie, George Pataki even raised his voice about potentially running, Rand Paul, Scott Walker, Donald Trump. I even heard him sort of say, well, maybe I'll put my foot in it. Puts his foot in his mouth a lot, but maybe he'll put his foot in the ring now too. Bobby Jindal, Rick Santorum, Rick Perry, Ted Cruz. I mean, it's endless. And on the Democratic side, of course, we have Hillary, and we have the only one that's really announced is Hillary. But you have people who are really excited about Elizabeth Warren, a new senator from Massachusetts. And we have Joe Biden, who was interviewed just today, I guess, and said, well, I'm thinking about what my future will be. So Joe Biden is in the wings as well. So there's always some other person that might just come out and capture the imagination of the American people, but who knows? Let's face it, the current president was not even in the picture at this time when the last election, or 2 elections ago, came about, okay? So the point is that that's up for grabs, and we'll be discussing that or hearing about that all year long. Income disparity, that's at the cornerstone of what Mitt Romney is now talking about, and what the Republicans are even starting to talk about. The president last night was proposing certain things about community college and credits for families that would sort of ameliorate that situation, and raise taxes on the rich. So when we say rich, you know, could be 500,000, could be 3 million, your income. That would be up for grabs. But there is some room for agreement because they both want the same end, but they both have a different way of achieving that end. So perhaps they'll work together and come up with a compromise, because after all, that's what we haven't had for so many years in Washington, is compromise. And maybe now with a House and Senate controlled by Republicans, and a president who is not, let's say, he's not gonna, as he said last night, he's not going to run again. He can say and do and try to do something that perhaps he was more reluctant to do before this point in time. So he wants to leave, obviously, anybody that's president wants to leave a legacy of, positive legacy, right? So let's hope that that's a hopeful sign. Healthcare is a big debatable item. Nobody here is on Medicare or Medicaid, right? So you don't care about this discussion at all. Okay, but that's a big debate. The Republicans want to emasculate the program, change it to a great extent, and there are many flaws in it, and many Democrats want to change it, but the Republicans really want to wipe it out, which I think is almost impossible to do at this stage of the game. But again, we'll see, because, you know, hospitals and healthcare organizations have, and insurance companies have reorganized their whole system of charges and coverages based upon that. It would take years to untangle this at this point and create other problems. So we'll see what happens there. Climate control was just announced. NASA and other major international organizations have announced that it's definitely 14 out of the last 15 years have been the hottest years in known history, so in written history at least. The fact is that last year was the hottest year on record going back to the 1800s. So the point is, it's a definite fact. Now you can argue whether it's man-made, man-exacerbated, or just the natural flow of things for the Earth, because we've had ice ages and we've had the opposite in this as a planet. So the point is, there's the big debate. Guns, well, we're all in favor of guns. How many people came packing tonight? Nobody? Well, you know, you're packing. Okay, packing a gun, that's what it means, packing. You're packing. You're not packing to move, are you? No, you're packing a gun. And in some states, it is now legal to carry a gun concealed. In many states, you can carry a gun not concealed because the hunters have them on their racks, on their cars, or their whatever, and, you know, it's in plain sight. But in some states now, you can walk into a store or go anywhere, really, a hospital or anywhere else, with a gun concealed. Very dangerous kind of stuff. So there's a big debate about guns, and we know the damage they do by people who mean to use them, but we also know the damage they do by accident, by children playing with them. The recent case was out in the Midwest where a mother was wheeling her little child in one of these push carts, and he was in the seat. He reached into her pocketbook, pulled out her little gun, and killed her. So there are accidents out there, okay? And I know because I have a 3-year-old a grandson who loves guns, and you know, the television promote these things. The kids shows even show this all the time, and he loves making pictures of guns or whatever. So there is a fascination that people have with guns, and the point is, actually having them out there is a dangerous thing for us that don't carry them, all right? So that's a big debate. Drugs, well, we know about the drug war. It's never been successful. We still capture people with 14 kilos or a ton or a truckload of this and that, and it's publicized. It's wonderful success, but we still have a drug culture, period. And we have legal drugs and illegal drugs. And now, obviously, you know about marijuana being legalized in Colorado, Washington, and being, even in New York State, it's legal to have marijuana, okay? You can't smoke it in New York State, but it is legal now in New York State, but the use of it. The fact is, though, it is recreational used in Colorado specifically, and it's causing all sorts of concern by many people, and even the people that sell it and grow it, it's a concern because there are federal laws which say you cannot use the banking system. So what do they do with the money? They're putting it under their beds, and you'll have a lot of people saying, well, I'm gonna ransack that house and look under the bed. Similar to what's happening in a way in Europe, where they have negative savings rates. In other words, you put your money in the bank in Europe today, and you get -%. You get charged for putting your money in the bank. So people are going to be putting it in their homes, and who knows what will happen with that. In marriage, we know what's happening in this country, and there's actually a case now in front of the Supreme Court concerning that, which is a marriage between same-sex couples in one state, legal in a state where the people, where the state has not passed same-sex marriage laws. You know, we're a very mobile society. People marry in California and move to a non-same-sex law state. Are they still considered married? It is. It's now that's in front of the court. Oil. Nobody here drives, right? No. Oh, I'm sure a lot of you people still drive. Well, you see the prices of gasoline, and I think 30 states have below $2. New York State, we don't, because of taxes and so forth, and who knows what else, but the point is, we're still down to $2.39. Well, I want to go there. I think I paid $2.43 is the last time I bought gas. But it means a lot to the people who are paying for electricity, gas, whatever. If you notice, the utility stocks on the stock market have been one of the best performers, because their cost of purchasing the ingredients, natural gas or oil, has been reduced considerably. Drones is something which the president did not discuss last night, but that is a tremendous innovation for business, for terrorists, for people who want to spy on other people. It's here, and you think about it, you read about it, but I was driving in my neighborhood last week, and I saw a big sign posted on one street next to mine: if you find this drone, bring it to such and such an address. So people in suburban neighborhoods are now, or kids, are buying these drones, and they're unbelievable things. They will save farmers millions of dollars. They will save People who on construction sites, millions of dollars, because you don't have to rent helicopters and you don't have to have people actually traversing land to look at things. You can send a little drone up and down to do that. Tremendous cost saving. But if you're a terrorist, there's a football stadium full of people, and all of a sudden 10 drones come over. What do you do? With, you know, we do use drones. They were developed by the military to spy and to drop bombs. Well, I mean, you don't have to be a good guy to have a drone. You can be a bad guy and own a drone, right? So the thought is, let's say the marathon, or let's say New Year's Eve celebration, or the Thanksgiving Day parade, and there are drones over there. Let's say, oh, the police have been alerted to what they do. I don't know what they're going to do. You can't shoot them down. You shoot them down, they might explode, and bullets that go up also come down. Okay, so there's a terrorist potential that's, I don't think anybody understands how to protect against that right now, truthfully. But the point is, that's going to be a factor in life going forward. Maybe not a big deal in 2015, but it's such an explosive situation that they are trying to get legislation to prohibit them from being near the airports, because you've heard about, you know about planes that suck in birds and are brought down. Remember in LaGuardia 3 years ago when they had to land in the Hudson River? Well, that was from a